In this video, I'm going to show you how to make drawing features in Gdevelop. Let's get right into it. So let's get started. Here I have a blank project and all I did is go to the top left, go to File, go to Create, and then New Empty Project and create a new blank project wherever you want to save it. Now let's get into drawing. Simply put, drawing is instantiating an object. It can be preferably a circle, but it can be any shape. But instantiating an object that matches with the cursor. And drawing can be used for several features in games. Maybe you want to activate something. Maybe you want to draw a certain shape to activate a certain event. Maybe you want to be able to draw platforms for your player. I'm going to show you how to do things of that matter and a little bit more as well. So we're going to start by adding a new object because the first thing we want to do is add a cursor. So I'm going to go to sprite object. I'm going to name this cursor so we can remember it. I'm going to go into add animation and I'm going to go click this small arrow here and then choose a file from the asset store. And I'm going to search up here cursor because this is a asset store built into Gdevelop that every single Gdeveloper has. So you don't have to worry about not having these assets. They're completely free. And I'm going to put enter once again and it's just taking a little bit to load. And I'm going to put this cursor right here. You can choose any cursor you like, but I'm going to hit apply. Now, if I drag this cursor on the scene and then preview the game, you'll see that the cursor, it doesn't move. It doesn't actually match where my cursor is. So how do we fix that? Now, you could do this a brute force way in Gdevelop, but there's an easier way to do it with a good extension. So I'm going to go into add extensions, and this extension is called mouse helper. It's called mouse helper, and it's really useful. If you're doing any game with a mouse, you want to use the extension. And it's renamed here to cursor object. It used to be called mouse helper as well. Install object. Yeah, as you can see, it says mouse helper there. And it's now just install into your project and make sure you have it there on the left. Now, what do we want to do now? I'm going to double click into my cursor, go into behaviors, add a behavior, and I'm going to scroll down and click cursor. And this simply, there's no parameters we need to fill out. All this does is turn our object into a cursor. Now I'm going to hit preview, and now you can see my cursor disappeared first of all, and now this crosshair is now my cursor. And of course, you don't actually have to use this, but it's just easier and more flexible to use an object as your cursor when you're trying to handle events. So it's a good practice to always turn your cursor into an object when you're doing things dealing with the mouse in your game. So now that that's done, what do we want to do next? Well, we want to actually start creating the drawing feature. Now we're going to need an object for that first. I'm going to add a new object, and I'm going to add a sprite, and I'm going to call this circle. Now when you're drawing, if you want things to actually look like you're drawing in like a drawing software, which is what I assume most people want, I'm going to add an animation, but the sprite should be a circle. It should be a circle sprite, because any other shape will look much worse. So there's a black circle. I have this already built in, but all you have to do is go into Pixel or any pixel art software and get a circle object. It doesn't even have to be Pixel. And if I drag this into the scene, you see there's not the most high quality circle because it's made in Pixel. But the more high quality the circle is, the better it's going to look when you actually draw things from it. Now, of course, we can't do anything with this yet, so I'm going to delete it. I'm going to go into the Events tab. Now, what we want to do is every time we click, we want to instantiate an object. What I mean by instantiate, we're going to create an object at the position of the cursor so we can just draw. Now, I'm going to go into my add condition, and I'm going to put other conditions. I'm going to scroll down, put mouse and touch, and put if mouse button is pressed or touch held, go to this drop down menu and put left. We want the left key. And now this is a condition. And what we want to do is create an object at the position of the cursor. So I'm going to put circle, create an object, X position, and I'm going to put, for the X position, I'm going to put cursor, because that's the object name, cursor dot, and make sure not to put cursor X, that's following the exact mouse. We want to follow the object. So cursor dot X, and then put parentheses. I'm going to copy and paste this, and put cursor, instead of cursor dot X, I'm going to put cursor dot Y. And we want this to be on the base layer. That's the only layer we have. I'm going to add this and preview. And if I click, you'll see I can already draw. I can already draw. But one thing you may notice is that it's not exactly centered. I can kind of still see my cursor, and it's not really centered. It's not really centered. So how do I really center this? So I'm going to go into cursor, edit points, and I'm going to go into the center right here. We already have a center because normally by default, if I zoom in here, Gdevelop always spawns an object at another object's origin point, which is this one in the top left corner. But we want the spawn at the center point, which is already built in. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to go back into the code and put, instead of spawning at cursor.x, I'm going to put cursor.pointx. And we have to fill in a parameter, and I'm going to put quotes and then put center, because this is the name of the center point. If it was another name, you would put another different name. And I'm going to put point y, since we want to follow the y position, and then put parentheses center. And now if I hit OK and put preview, when I draw, you won't even be able to really see the cursor that much. Like, it's actually spawning from its center, you know. It's spawning from the center now. And this is very good right here already. So we've already made a drawing feature. And that's how you make a simple drawing feature. If you want to just let people draw things in your game, of course, you can make an event that will delete all of these circle objects if you don't want to have any more of these. But how do we make this more interactive? Like, let's say a platformer, maybe we want to add some platforms that the player can draw. Now, you can skip over this part if you like, but all I'm about to do is set up a platform character, and I'm going to set up a platform character and a platform. So I'm going to go into sprite. I'm going to go call this player. And if you already know how to do this, you can skip it. But I'm going to add a sprite. And I'm going to put this red cube. You can use any sprites you want. And I'm going to go into behaviors. Add behavior. I don't want to read the docs, so maybe you can click into that. Add behavior. And I'm going to put platform character. And for now, we're going to leave everything default. I'm going to add another object. Add a sprite. And I'm going to rename this to platform. And I'm going to add an animation once again. And this is just going to be a black cube. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to go into the behavior tab, add a behavior, and click platform. And we don't want the ledges to be grabbed. And I'm going to put apply. Now I'm going to drag this player onto the screen and drag platform. I'm going to just stretch this platform out so that the player has something to walk on. And now what we want to do, I'm going to hit preview for a second to make sure everything works. But we can control it with the arrow keys and press space to jump. But what we want to do is to let the player be able to draw something like this and then be able to jump on it. As you can see right now, I go through the drawing. But how do I want to make it so I can jump on it? Now this is very, 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 very simple. All we have to do is do something extremely, extremely easy. All we have to do is go into our circle behavior, and make it as a platform. That's all you have to do. And I'm going to put ledges can't be grabbed. And now look at this. When I draw now, once it loads up, when I draw, I can now jump on this. I can now jump on this. So now if you want to make a platform that's a little bit more unique, you can now draw your own objects. And the reason why it's a little bit inaccurate because it still has the hitbox of a square. That's why it looks like this. But I can draw my own platforms now. And I can even do this. Like I can like draw a line under the player and kind of push it up as well. And that's just another idea that you can use. But this is what I can do with it. It's really cool. So I wanted to show you all one more thing. I know you want to do this with drawing. Activating a certain event. Let's say, for example, when you draw a triangle shape, it activates a certain event, like it opens a door or something. I know that's a very cool feature. And you can do, the way I'm about to show you, you can do any shape you want as long as you place the objects right. Now, what this is going to basically be based on is, it's going to be an object called activator. And when you touch all those objects, it will activate a certain event. Now, this is a little bit more complicated than you think, so make sure you follow along here. So I'm going to add a new object first, and it's going to be a sprite. I'm going to call this one activator. Activator. Add an animation, add a sprite, and I already have one ready. I'm just going to use a green sprite for this to make sure it looks different from everything else. And I'm going to go into my variables. And we want one variable is an object variable. Make sure it's not a scene variable. Add a variable, and it's going to be a boolean, which means it only has a true or false value. And I'm going to put active. And this, I'm not going to have a capital A, but I'm going to put active. And this variable is the one that will detect whether an object has actually activated the block yet, whether the object of the circle is touching the activator, because we're going to have to know that. And by default, it's going to be false. And one more thing we want to do, I'm going to go into our project, and I'm going to go into the three dots right here, edit scene variables, add variable. I'm going to name this a count. And what this stands for is activator count. Basically, this is going to be something that counts how many objects are activated. And then once all of those objects are activated, once they reach a certain number, then it'll set off an event. Because remember, every time we're trying to program a unique feature, we have to think of things in a programming way, in a way of numbers, mainly numbers, variables, booleans. We have to think of things in that way. So I'm going to have this as a number variable, also known as an integer. And by default, it'll be 0. By default, it'll be 0. Now I'm going to hit apply. Now, here's the idea. I'm going to drag some of these on. I'm going to set it as a pretty decently large size because our drawing is quite big. And custom size, I'm going to double this size and set it as 64 by 64. And here's the idea. I'm going to duplicate and make like 5 of these. Duplicate. Throw it under here. And it's important, if you want it to be really exact, you want to have small objects with little gaps. But since we're doing this for a tutorial sake and it's just going to be a simple line shape, we don't have to have all of these objects because it just doesn't have to be that specific. It's just a line. So the idea is for us to draw. You can see my cursor moving. Us to draw. I'm going to preview so we can see it better. The idea here is for me to draw on all of these cubes. Draw on all of these cubes. And then it'll activate like an event. And just to show, I'm gonna have a new thing called wall. Add an animation, add a sprite, and you can pick any sprite you want. I'm gonna put this blue one right here. It's gonna be a blue wall, and that the player can't get past. And make sure you add the behavior of platform. Ledges can't be grabbed. Gotta make this a little bit thicker, and it's going to be a wall that's going to sit here until the player activates it. So the idea is for us to draw a line, and then it'll delete this wall as just a showcase of the events that it can really do. I'm just aligning all of these cubes. Now let's get into the fun stuff now. Now that we have everything set up, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to add a new event. And add a condition. And the first thing we want to check if the circle is in collision with the activator. So I'm going to click circle first, and I'm going to type collision, and I'm going to put with activator. If cursor is in collision with activator, and then I'm going to put and we want to check whether the object variable of active is true or not. Well, it's false. So I'm going to go into activator, make sure you click activator. I'm going to put boolean. It's going to put boolean variable, and I'm going to click active and check whether it's false. So basically what it's going to do is, if the circle is in collision with activator and the activator variable is false, and remember, these are separate. Object variables are separate. Each of these has their own value of active. So just because this top one is active doesn't mean the other ones are active. That's how object variables are, and that's why we use it instead of a scene variable. But when this is false, if this is in collision with it, the circle, and it's false, it's going to add something to a count. It's going to add 1 to a count, and it's going to set activator to true so we don't keep repeating it and adding on more. So I'm going to change the scene variable, other actions, variable, scene variables, change number variable, a count, plus, and then 1. So we're adding 1. And then last but not least, I'm going to click activator. I'm going to type boolean. It's going to change the boolean variable, put active, and we're going to change this value from false to true. And just to show you how I want this to work, I'm going to click a new event, and if a count equals 1. For this example, I'm going to use 1. If the activator, if it equals 1, well, I forgot it's a scene variable. If scene variable, number variable, if a count equals 1, we want to add an action, go to wall, and type delete the wall. And now you'll see, if I click this top one, because the top one at the top is activator 1. If I put a drawing on it, let's say I just draw a line through or something, it'll delete it. But the idea is for it to draw it through all of these, and then it'll delete the wall. Now, it's pretty easy. Now, it's a little bit tedious sometimes if you have a lot of shapes, but it's not that hard. All you have to do is copy this and paste it. And now, instead of putting activator 1, I forgot one more thing. One more thing I forgot to do. My apologies. These all have to be duplicated. These all have to be duplicated. They can't all be the same object, or else they'll all share the same variable. That's why I forgot to mention. I got this a little bit mixed up. So I'm going to duplicate and make 5 of these. I'm going to make all the way into there's 5. And here we go. There's 5 of them now. And make sure you put these in the right order. I'm going to set this value as 64 by 64. Once again, I'm going to speed up this part, but all you have to do is set each one of these activators to 64 by 64. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. Alright, now that all these objects are separate, because this is important, if these objects are not separate, it's not going to work right. It's not going to work right. So I'm going to go back into the events, and instead of putting activator 1 here, I'm going to put activator 2. And everything else, I have to change it to activator 2 as well. And then change this to activator 2. So what you want to do is copy and paste this, and instead of putting activator 2 for this one, for the next one you want to put activator 3, so on and so forth. And I'm also going to speed up this part, and you can follow along with the speed up because what I'm doing is the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. Okay, we're done here. I'm going to reorganize this real fast. And right now, make sure there's not a sub event or it will not work. But as you can see, if all of these are activated, A count is going to equal 5 because we're adding 1 to it 5 times. And basically, instead of putting if A count is equal to 1, we're going to put if A count is equal to 5, which means all of these activators now have to all be activated in order for it to delete the wall. So let's preview. And if we did this right, it should work. So I'm going to put my cursor through all of these. And I see the moment I hit that last one, it should activate. 3, 2, 1. Here it is. That's how it works. And that's basically about it. As you can imagine, I can put this in any shape I want. I can put this in quite literally any shape I want. Like I can make a star thing like here. And I can put this in any shape I want. And here's the thing. I'm going to show you one last thing before I go. One last thing. Like I can put it in this shape. And then I have to put like a plus symbol like that. But I'm going to put these back in the line. And do one more thing before we go. And this is basically cosmetic. This is purely cosmetic. But in a game, you probably don't want them to see this. You want it to have like a trail. You want them to have like a trail that they can follow. So instead of having them see this, we want them to see a trail instead. So I'm going to add a new object, sprite, and call this trail. And the trail is purely cosmetic. It has no code that needs to be added. I'm going to add a sprite, and you can add any sprites you want, but I'm going to add a gray cube. That will signify that this is a trail. Now what I'm going to do to all of these is I'm going to copy all of them and put them in a layer. I got to add a new layer down here. And if you don't have this menu, go up here and click the layers panel. It looks like those 3 stacks of paper. Add a layer, and I'm going to call this invisible. And everything on this layer will be invisible. And I'm going to make this go down. And I'm going to set this also. Make sure you click this eye, and this will hide the layer. So anything on this layer, it will still be an object, but it just won't be able to be seen. So I'm going to copy all of these and click invisible to add them as layer. And actually, when I click off, you won't be able to see them. I'm going to set them as visible for now. And I'm going to put this trail here. I'm going to make it slightly thicker than the other ones, so the player doesn't have to be too exact all the time. They just need a general idea of where to draw. And then I'm going to cover it up. And really, we don't have to make it invisible, but just in case somehow the player can see behind it. And also so we don't have to deal with layers, I'm going to hide this layer. And now, when I preview, this looks much cleaner for an actual game. All I have to do is draw. Of course, you have instructions, but they draw through this trail now. And now they activate an event. Of course, you want to deactivate it as a wall if you want to actually make a game like this. You want to deactivate this as a wall. But that's how you do drawing in Gdevelop. And I encourage you to get creative, play around with a bunch of shapes that you can do with it. You can do any shape you want. Just remember always, if you want to make a different shape, like several drawing things in the level, you need to have a different A count. You need to have a different A count, and you need to have duplicated activators. They can never be the same object or this will not work. But that's how you do drawing in Gdevelop. Of course, get creative and have fun with it. And I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you got something from it. If you like and enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on any of my new Gdevelop content. I want to thank you all for watching once again, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.